Yooka-Laylee review, better than a 90s platformer. Yooka-Laylee changes just enough to support its compelling platforming. Is the 3D platformer dead? Someone should probably tell Nintendo. Can't have any more critically acclaimed Mario games doing the rounds. Hell, let Sony know, too. Who knows how many more series best Ratchet and Clank games it has in the works. That's the thing about nostalgia, everything seems better in the past, even when it wasn't. It isn't a good idea to put 90s TV demagogue Chris Evans back on the air, for instance. Nor is it a good idea to buy all your music on the hiss-filled tape of a compact cassette. The Nokia 3310 isn't the greatest phone ever made, blue passports won't usher in a grand era of pre-war British prosperity, and 90s 3D platformers were not all they were cracked up to be. But then, if you were one of the thousands that helped Yooka-Laylee ride a wave of nostalgia to a £2 million, $2.6M plus, Kickstarter windfall back in 2015, you know what you let yourself in for: anthropomorphic animals, dry British humor, a saccharine soundtrack, thousands of collectibles. Comic Sans, or at least a close match. Kickstarter backers eager to dig into a game that ignores the past 20 years of games development, including its many wonderful platformers, in favor of rose-tinted thrills will find Yooka-Laylee delivers and then some. What backers might not expect, it certainly took me by surprise, are a few modern, if subtle, twists. Yooka-Laylee is painfully true to its roots at times. Developer Playtonic is made up of ex-Rare employees that worked on the likes of Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong Country, with unfriendly level design and a wayward camera ranking high on the list of period particulars that should have had a makeover. But Yooka-Laylee also sprawls over its vast levels like a modern open-world game, luring you in with endless collectibles, challenges, and power ups. It's compelling stuff, particularly once you've passed the largely forgettable puzzles and platforming of Yooka-Laylee's opening world Tribal Stack Tropics. With only the most basic of the titular Yooka and Laylee's abilities unlocked, Yooka being the lime green lizard, Laylee the red-nosed bat on his back, Tribal Stack Tropics initially offers little in the way of challenge and much in the way of tedious collectible hunting. Bash a few enemies with Yooka-Laylee's spin attack, leap up a few simple moving platforms, and collect golden quills. Repeat ad nauseum. It's only once you've collected enough of those quills to unlock new abilities from Wheeler Dealer Snake Trouser, no giggling in the back, does Yooka-Laylee get interesting. Soon the titular pair leap twice as high, glide gently to the ground via Laylee's tiny bat wings, and bash through rubble with a swift downward stomp. Areas of Hub World Ivory Towers, the headquarters of managerial maniac capital B that were puzzlingly out of reach, soon become accessible. A steep ramp can be climbed by curling into a ball and rolling up it, a pool of water bypassed by using Yooka's tongue as a grappling hook. Few of these abilities are new to platformers, although the introduction of a stealth mechanic does result in some unique puzzles later in the game, but they're ably realized. An icy ramp in Glitter Glacier, the second world, proves too slippery to roll up initially, but a later ability allows Yooka to absorb the properties of items he eats. A conveniently placed honeypot provides the requisite stickiness for the ramp. Later, you absorb fire to free collectibles trapped in ice and water to put out fires on moving platforms that require the most precise of movements to navigate. Colorful characters provide their own unique challenges, too. Sad snowmen lose their top hats, forgetful knights, in this case hungry pigs, need to find their lost compatriots, and an ignorant sign needs you to blast away the rubble from a statue in double quick time using a handy grenade-sprouting shrub. A particular highlight is Kartos, God of Ore, whose minecart missions require you to collect gems while navigating all manner of jumps and enemies while blasting impassable barrels with a cannon. Like the classic platformers of yore, repetition and muscle memory are requisite for success. Indeed, Yooka-Laylee is a challenging game. Where Mario Galaxy hides its most difficult levels behind a subtle difficulty curve, Yooka-Laylee offers no such concessions to accessibility. It's hard. The kind of controller hurling, expletive shouting, these developers are a complete bunch of jerks hard that brings to mind the likes of Super Meat Boy and the latter stages of Rayman Legends. Such difficulty is admirable when attached to a puzzle or platforming section, particularly as Yooka-Laylee always demands just one more go. But oftentimes it is needlessly difficult. Yooka-Laylee demands exploration, especially if you want to collect all the lost pages from a book stolen by B, which unlock new worlds. Each of those worlds, including the central hub, is a labyrinthine mess of confusing corridors, hidden doorways, and sky-high platforms that are archaically complicated. Even if spending hours hunting down pitch-black doorways and invisible platforms sounds appealing, doing it multiple times because of the absence of a world map, even one that only traces where you've already visited, is especially frustrating. There are other problems, too. The camera, just like in the 90s, has a habit of getting stuck or randomly zipping around Yooka at the most inopportune moments. The controls, while largely solid, lack the sophisticated feel of Mario, where his reassuring weight ensures that even the most difficult of challenges seem surmountable. And as much as I appreciate the nostalgic value of Yooka-Laylee's garbled, nonsensical dialogue, after 30 hours I'd challenge even the most patient player to not yearn for a skip button during cutscenes. None of this, however, should take away from Platonic's achievement. Yooka-Laylee is a vast platformer that, even 30 hours in, I feel I've barely scratched the surface of. It's filled with challenges that, while not reaching the heady heights of Nintendo's finest, are some of the most compelling to have graced a 3D platformer in years. Its boss battles are complex, clever, and often spectacularly difficult. A later battle required well over an hour of trial and error to complete. The writing is cheesy in all the right ways, with a gloriously pun-filled, self-deprecating Britishness that pokes fun at the game and the genre. The bright, colorful visuals and depth of field effects, which tease puzzles and challenges hidden away in the distance, are lovely to look at as well. That's not to mention the many games that have you answering quiz questions to B's feathered henchman Dr. Quack, or stomping on switches to move a ball bearing through a maze in Casino. There's also an arcade machine on every level, manned by the forgetful dinosaur Rixtro 60 Furus. This lets you play fun homages to games like Mario Kart and Gauntlet in exchange for a collectible play coin. The sheer amount of compelling content in a game that costs almost half as much as a typical retail release is hugely impressive, and it makes the rough edges that little bit more forgivable. Yooka-Laylee might have been born out of nostalgia for a period in gaming that, yes, is a tad overrated. But Platonic's take on the early 3D games of the 90s is more progressive than your average piece of pixel art gumph, even if it misses the mark in places. The good, clever puzzles and challenging platforming. Hardcore boss battles. Huge levels to explore. Tongue-in-cheek writing. Bags of content. The bad, haphazard level design makes navigation without a map tricky. Cameras sometimes has a mind of its own. Early game is dull. The ugly. How long can you last before you hit mute on the dialogue? Verdict: Yooka-Laylee stays true to its 90s platformer roots, even to its detriment. But there are just enough modern touches and excellent platforming to make it more than just another nostalgia play.